Now let's get into some real talk. It's time for story time, everyone. Why don't we just dive right on in? Hey guys, welcome to my channel. So for this video, I thought I would tell the story about my leg surgery that I had, my emergency leg surgery back in 2014. So not a lot of people know this, but I had 2 major leg surgeries in my lifetime so far. So I thought I would tell you about the emergency surgery I had. So let me start the story back. So this was back in 2014 where I was working part-time for Parks and Recreation. And they had an event on the weekend one time, which was called The Amazing Race. And if you're not familiar with what the reality show of The Amazing Race is, basically you get clues, you have to run around to this location and do your challenge to get your next clue. Well, this was kind of like that, except it was more scavenger hunt-ish, in the sense of you had to take so many pictures, you had to go to so many destinations to do so many challenges, and different things like that. So anyways, I competed with a bunch of friends, and we did all right, but it involved a lot of running. Now, I know I'm not the most physically in shape person, but what I had always realized before this was whenever I would do like excess amount of walking or running, it just depended. I would get like pains on the sides of my leg, and those pains would feel like burning sensations for a while. And sorry, I'm just pulling up what I had exactly. Anyways, burning pains on the sides, and it was really hurting, but it would go away after a certain amount of time. Well, anyways, after this race, that pain was really affecting my right leg, and it wasn't going away. It was hurting for a while, and it felt like I almost pulled something, like I pulled a muscle or a tendon or something. So I was in so much pain. It was hard to sleep at night. Listen, I'm just going to lift my glasses for the reflection so you can see my face. And the pain was so much that I had a hard time sleeping. I would get up and pace because that seemed to help, this and that. So I ended up going to emergency that night. Was it that night or the next day? I think it was that night. I was like, I can't take this. So I went to emergency. I was exhausted. They're like, yeah, it looks like you might have pulled a muscle. Here's some medication for it. All right, fine. I think it was like an anti-inflammatory they gave me. So took the pills, tried to sleep, but the pain was still pretty bad. So fought through it, ended up getting a doctor's appointment with my family doctor because I couldn't take it anymore. And she was like, okay, it looks like you might have compartment syndrome. Now I'll get into what compartment syndrome is later. But she's like, it looks like you might have compartment syndrome. Usually what you need to do is just ice it and elevate it. So ice it and elevate it. Here's some painkillers for now if it's really bothering you. And the inflammation should go away. All right, fine. I was doing all that, and my leg was just feeling swollen and stuff, and I was pacing. The painkillers were not helping me. I ended up going to work the next day because I worked part-time, so I had a morning shift. So I did my morning shift, and I then was going home. And because I had, was it that day? I think it was that day. Yeah, it was that day. Was it that day or the next day? Doesn't matter. I know I'll get corrected by my parents because they were with me during these experiences. But anyways, I was driving home from work because I part-time, so I worked in the morning. Then I was off for the rest of the day until the afternoon. And I went home and I was screaming in sheer pain. I was so in pain. So I called the doctor's office. They're like, okay, we'll schedule you tomorrow. Come in for an ultrasound and an x-ray. We'll have it looked into. All right, fine. That night, pain. So the next day, I actually had a written test to do for a job I had applied for. So I ended up that morning waking up and my foot was swollen and beet red. I actually have the picture, so if you're a little squeamish or whatever, don't look, but here's the picture of what my foot looked like. And I ended up wearing a sandal and went into the city. I lived in Kempville at the time and took the test. Now, the date that the test was taken on was October 22nd, 2014. Now, for those that don't live in Canada or don't remember that date, that was the date of a terrorist attack in Canada in Ottawa, where I was. And that was actually when there was an active shooter that ended up killing someone at the National War Memorial and then stormed Parliament Hill and ended up getting inside. And it was a terrible day. And I want to, of course, bring recognition to the victim, which was Corporal Nathan Cirillo, I believe is the name of the person that ended up being shot and dying. But so that was the day that I did my test. So I was in so much pain that it was like, I have to go to emergency now. I have to go. So my mom's like, well, don't go to an Ottawa hospital. You should go back to Kempville, go to the Kempville hospital. Just because of the shooting, a lot of places were going on lockdown at the time. So drove back to Kempville with my dad. My dad drove me and ended up going to emergency. They rushed my x-ray and ultrasound. My doctor, family doctor, actually happened to be one of the doctors at emergency. And she's like, yeah, you need to go to emergency in Ottawa, the emergency room in Ottawa, immediately. Here's your x-rays and your ultrasounds. You need to go now. So we ended up going to the Queensway Carleton. That's where they were expecting us. And I hobbled in. Cops were at the door. This was also during the Ebola outbreak. So I had questions to take. And then they put me in a wheelchair, wheeled me in as my dad went to park. And I'm like, here you go. You're expecting me. So they ended up sitting me in a room. The doctor ended up coming out and he's like, okay. The attending physician of the emergency room came and she's like, oh, well, you should be icing and elevating it. And it's like, okay, well, that's what I've been doing and nothing's been helping. She's like, well, you need to do it. So we did it. But then a surgeon ended up coming in and talking to me and he's like, we need to do emergency surgery today. You need to have it done now. And they weren't actually performing any more surgeries because of the attack. Everything was on lockdown. So they were only doing emergency surgeries. So they rushed me into the emergency room because I did have compartment syndrome. So I'll actually read what compartment syndrome is. So each group of muscles, and this is from the nhs.uk site, but each group of muscles in the arms and legs, together with nearby blood vessels and nerves, is contained in a space surrounded by tissue called fascia. Compartment syndrome occurs when the pressure within a compartment increases, restricting the blood flow to the area and potentially damaging the muscles and nearby nerves. It usually occurs in the legs, feet, arms, or hands, but can occur whenever there's an enclosed compartment inside the body. So mine was in my leg. So acute compartment syndrome is intense pain. Symptoms are intense pain, tenderness, tightness in the muscle, tingling, burning sensation, numbness, or weakness. So that's kind of what was happening to me. So I'm getting prepped for surgery. I pissed off at the emergency room in Kempville that I first went to that thought it was a muscle strain and pulled muscle. And I'm like, if I die, you're to sue the hospital, is what I said to my mom. Anyways, here's a picture of me waiting for surgery. And she's like, yeah, we'll do it. Anyways, surgery went off without a hitch. Apparently, though, because I was put, they ended up giving me an epidural because I had eaten something and they didn't want to risk me being put under like that. So they did an epidural, but I ended up passing out because I was so exhausted because I hadn't slept in days. And They said that apparently when they opened up my leg, one of the muscles was gray because it was dying. But fortunately, it perked and pinked back up. They released all the fascia in my compartments. And yeah, they had to suture me closed. I won't show that image. Probably not YouTuber friendly. But they had to put sutures in my leg to keep it tight. And I had drop foot for a couple of days. So I had to wear one of those boots that you get, like those air casts, to stop myself from tripping on myself. And I had to use crutches. So I spent the night at the hospital. Next day was released. Here's a picture of me being released. And yeah, that was my compartment syndrome dilemma. So the next year we ended up doing surgery on my other leg, preventative, so that it didn't happen in that leg either, because mine was chronic compartment syndrome, so it could happen in both all the times. So that's what ended up happening. So that was the story of my leg surgery. So just goes to show, you never know what happens. I guess the athlete that I was, because it usually is more common in athletes and the military for constant walking, usually get compartment syndrome. But I guess because I'm such the athlete, I got it myself. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this story that I told. If you'd like to hear some more fun, interesting, traumatic stories that have happened to me, make sure to give this video a like, comment down below, and don't forget you can always check me on my other social media accounts as well as on my Patreon. Links are in the description. But until next time, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!